sure exactly what happened. So thank you so much.
Okay, and you know how to kick off the polls?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I knew that, because I've been doing polling in my classes and everything. And
Okay.
it's, seems okay. If you see me struggle, just, let me know.
The only thing I wasn't sure about
okay.
was the questions, if you wanted those to be single choice or multiple choice, or choose one option or choose multiple options.
How did you set it up? Because on the first one, they could choose multiple options. On the second one, it's probably better to choose
Yeah, the second one didn't make sense, but the first one could go either way.
Yeah.
Let me see here real quick. It's set to multiple.
You know what? That's okay. That's all right.
I can change it too. The other question too is that there wasn't enough room. There's only room for 10 questions.
Yeah, that's okay. I figured you would just do as many as you could on the first one. That's fine.
And I can change the other one to single choice if you want.
Yeah, why don't you change the other one to single choice if it's not too much trouble? Thanks.
The first one or the second one?
The second one.
The second one's already a single choice. The first one's multiple choice.
Oh, that's what I thought. Okay, that's fine to leave the first one multiple choice. That's fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, welcome everybody to our Arizona Commerce Authority Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective. My name is Andy Lombard, Executive Vice President at the ACA. We're super happy to have a great guest list today and a wonderful topic on how to work with your employees during this very difficult time frame. So this is a really important topic. We're definitely going to hit more of this as we move along in the next few weeks. Certainly wanted to thank the University of Arizona and Deborah Himsel, who is going to be presenting for us today, and also all of our other partners. You have been just fantastic in contributing so much to our small business boot camp and collective. Just a little background, the ACA Small Business Boot Camp is designed for companies of 20 employees and less, but any companies can join it. We're really focusing on elements needed to return stronger and plan for a great return after this COVID crisis and during the COVID crisis. It's a statewide initiative and supported by our community partners. And we're doing this daily and we're going to continue it for the next several weeks. We haven't announced our future plans in June, but rest assured we are going to continue this programming. So we're excited about that. This week we've had some great sessions. Yesterday was a fantastic session on PPP loan forgiveness and what to do with that forgiveness process and managing that process. This was extremely popular yesterday, so we're going to look to have another session as soon as we can. We'll try to fit that in next week. Today we're doing managing employees during a crisis. This is super important information. And again, we're super excited to have Deborah join us today. Tomorrow, please join us. We're going to be doing one of the first sessions for specifically industry, and we're focusing on the small restaurant industry and those tactics needed to reopen. So it's very timely, as Monday was our first official day for dine-in, but we're really focusing in on all the processes and things that need to be done. On Thursday, we're having 2 sessions on safety and return to work safely. This is in concert with the National Safety Council. Our Arizona chapter has done a great job, and we're excited to hear from them with 2 different sessions at 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And then on Friday, we added a new session topic. We're going to have a panel of marketing experts and marketing to return stronger. Again, very, very important topics as we start to consider our return stronger strategy. I'm going to hand it over to Robert Theobald. He is our small business ombudsman and also the leader of our small business initiatives at the Arizona Commerce Authority, and very much an expert, all things PPP, EIDL, SBDCs, and others. So Robert, please give us an update.
Good morning, everybody. So we covered this yesterday if you're on the call, but as of May 10th, it was a little Mother's Day gift from the SBA to give us some updated numbers. But there's about 122 billion remaining as of May 10th, so still gonna be some good numbers in the PPP. So far in the second round, Arizona small businesses, there's been 51,000 small businesses that received the loans of over 4 billion. When you combine that with round 1 of the PPP, over 70,000 Arizona small businesses have received loans, bringing in $8 billion into the Arizona economy to help those businesses recover and remain viable. So it's a huge chunk of funding coming into Arizona, and hopefully those businesses can leverage that and we can return stronger with it. We also received some updates on the EIDL advance. Over 52,000 companies have received an EIDL advance, averaging a little over $3,000 per business for 176 million. And then just some reopening dates. We know that on the 8th, last Friday, that salons and barbershops reopened. And yesterday, restaurants were able to reopen. And so we should see the dine-in piece opening up this week as the restaurants get their staffs back to speed and are able to follow the guidelines to reopen.
Thank you very much, Robert. That's great information. And I also want to add, we are not only top 16 state in both the number of businesses and funds approved, but if you look at the percentage of small businesses, we're close to 67% of our small businesses. We have 106,000 small businesses in Arizona. So that's 70,000 numbers, very significant. That is a top 7 state in the United States in terms of percentage of businesses receiving PPP. We also want to reiterate, if you haven't applied, apply. We're seeing some very quick turnarounds right now. If you have any questions, we've become very, very good at figuring out what that process is. It was difficult in the beginning, but I think right now, if you are still thinking about it, it is still a good time to do so. And those turnarounds are pretty quick. So
yeah, we have a number of small lenders that we've communicated with that can process those fairly quickly.
Yeah, we can actually supply you with some lenders that are still active as well. Also, other programs I wanted to call to your attention. The Arizona Commerce Authority has really put a lot of effort into our site, azcommerce.com. You'll see the COVID links there. Also, Together Arizona. Please look at those informations. This is refreshed multiple times a day, so it's very current information. You will also see all the programming on our site for these boot camps. We record all of them, so you have them. A ton of Q&As available to you as well. As well, there's information, the pitch decks and others will be provided up on the site. That is, again, azcommerce.com/COVID, and you can kind of look at all the different small businesses. And we'll post those links during this call as well. Other resources, please reach out to our state's SBDCs. They have been absolutely wonderful. Incredible information that they've been providing on a nonstop basis. Also including our Arizona Employer Liaison Group, the Workforce Arizona at Work. And also from a manufacturer's perspective, if you have questions or needs on supply chain and manufacturing, we have a wonderful MEP Arizona Manufacturing Extension Partnership and several experts available to help you in many, many different facets of your manufacturing needs. So please stay informed, hop on the sites, let us know, click in there, and we'll keep that information flowing to you. So without further ado, Deborah Himsel is faculty at Eller Executive Education at University of Arizona. She's an expert in this topic, and we're so pleased to have her join us. So without further ado, we're going to hand it over to Deborah. Thank you, Deborah. I'll let you share your screen.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, let me get my screen going. And
Thank you.
there we go. We're all getting so used to Zoom now. Good. Well, thank you very much. And it's a real pleasure to be here. So my objectives really are very minimal. And I really divided my presentation today into 2 pieces. One is really an overview and a framework for how you can better understand kind of how this crisis is affecting people. And then the secondly, and probably most important to you, is really understanding kind of some of the how-tos and what you can do for leading during this particular time. The agenda, I'll do a little bit of presentation, some content, and then Q&A, and I can take answers, what I say, questions in my lane, and then there are probably a lot of other questions that others can respond with as well, and then a wrap up. I think we're all probably pretty savvy with Zoom now, but you can use the chat function for questions. You can, use the participants, raise your hand, and the Q&A function as well. So we all know, and I think we all have felt it, that emotions are really running high at this time. And even though we're starting into the next phase of reopening, emotions are still running high and continue to run high. My colleagues and I have really put together some of the most common things that we've found, and I'm sure we haven't captured all, but I actually want to launch a poll and just see which of the following that you found has caused the most stress for your employees. And this is one where you can pick either one or multiple ones, and I ran out of space here, so take a minute and just click on any of the following that you found has caused the most stress for your employees. Give you a couple more seconds and let's see what we've got here. So it looks like our top vote getter, at least on this one, is anxious about getting sick. Children at home and homeschooling, which I continue to hear will even be more of a problem, and being home interruptions, etc. And last but not least, video meeting overload. I know I was so exhausted yesterday. I had such a headache. I just had to go outside and get some air. So we know that emotions are really running high. And one of the things that I do a lot of is work on neuroscience and leadership. And some colleagues had put together this slide to actually say a lot of this is really about kind of our brain responding to threats. And so what they call a level 1 is, if you can think about, I'm going to use the metaphor, a lion is after us. So level 1 is there's a lion in Arizona. And so, we're like a little threat, but, it's kind of out there and off there. Level 2 is there's a lion in our neighborhood. In my screen background there, that's the Superstition Mountains. So there's a lion somewhere kind of in the neighborhood, and we're getting a little more anxious. And level 3 is actually the lion is after us. We've become the prey. And one of the things that we've been finding is that for the most part, we've been operating in kind of level 2, level 3, and it's pretty stressful, as I think we all can attest to. And when our brain is sensing these threats, a lot of these things which you see on the screen is happening. And this is actually physiological responses and chemical responses in our brain. And for me, it's around memory loss. I've been finding if I don't make a very precise list of everything, it just goes. And, I can have a conversation with somebody the previous day and I say, yeah, I'll do it. And then it totally flows out of my mind. So one of the things that, I want to leave you with is some of the things that you're seeing in your employees are just natural and normal. As much as they may be trying, they're just things physiologically that they may not have control over. The other thing that some colleagues and I have really been talking a lot on is that we're seeing that people are just in very different places. And some have really used the 5 stages of grief and loss to really talk about this. And again, my purpose here is just to say, as a manager, if you can kind of understand where people may be, it can help you to tailor your message to them and also to know it's natural and normal. And if we think about kind of some of the grief that we may be facing, it's about loss. Either it could be loss of loved ones, loss of our freedom, loss of potential job, money, etc. And one of the stages is denial. We just avoid it. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to think that it even exists. And I have some examples in a couple minutes. Then there's anger. We know what that looks like. Just a lot of frustration, irritation, and this can be, you may see all of these in a person. Bargaining, this is an interesting one where we say, well, if I do this, maybe then this will happen. If I don't do this, maybe this won't be happen. But it's almost like a kind of making a bargain. And then for some, it can actually go into depression, struggling to find meaning. I was talking to a very good friend and colleague yesterday, and this is where she was at, and just kind of talking about it and saying, yeah, I've had some of this too. Someday I'm really high, someday I'm really low. And then you have people that have, and you can go in and out of this. You can move through really quickly. You probably have some of your people that are saying, wow, this time has been great. I've reconnected with family. You might have some that say, woohoo, it's time for innovation. So it can be all of the above. Again, I've got another poll for this one also. And if you could just say which of the 5 stages of grief appears most prevalent now. And it could be that we've gone through one, and then with all that's happened, and we could be with the reopening cycling another one. So take a minute and just mark down kind of what you've seen or what you're seeing. Going to give you a couple more minutes, or a couple more seconds, sorry. Yeah, and this is a little scary. Depression seems to be the top, and anger, some acceptance. But I think you can see here that there's really a mixture here. And I guess that's one of the things that I wanted to leave you with, is that we're all in very different places. Your employees are in different places. And part of managing, and you're probably in a different place, part of managing during this time is to say, kind of, where am I? Where are others, and what are the implications of that? And here are just some things you may be hearing about denial. And I think it'll be interesting also as we begin, or we continue to open up, we may go back. I heard stories, and I'm here in Tucson with my mother, about, somebody going in and a restaurant was packed with people, nobody was wearing masks, and they were kind of talking about the silliness of it all. Here are just some things around anger that we're hearing, and I just pulled these from a lot of things that are written, and no judgment here, and of course no politics. The bargaining, heard a lot. I have my masks, no one else seems to be wearing them. Maybe I'm going to be okay. What if I do this? And some of the depression also. And a lot of what I've been hearing, people, again, these ups and downs. And then acceptance. You're probably going to have some people that are, as I mentioned, woohoo, let's kind of go start really innovating, or let's continue to innovate, etc. So this is a lot of times things that are a little bit beyond our control, because our brain, and again, I go back to a lot of the work I do around neuroscience, our brain is we crave certainty, we crave predictability, we crave control, and a lot of things right now, because, and when our brain is confronted with new situations, it tries to go back and tries to understand, well, when this happened before, how did I respond? What was my playbook? And we don't have a playbook for what happened. And a lot of times, lack of any of these things are going to put some of your people just really off kilter, and some of us off kilter as well. So I really want to go into think I'm going to go into. What can you do, and some implications and some very specifics for what you can do. So big overview, and then I'm going to get into some more very specifics. So one thing is just to understand, as I've probably kind of been a broken record, is that we're all, and your employees are going to be in very different stages. They'll move in and out of this, up and down. And the other thing to be aware of is that where they may be, if they're not to acceptance yet, or as you said, they're, a lot of them are in depression, probably not a lot that you can do to convince them or try to have them move from where they are now. And so, which leads to the second point, is just understanding. And sometimes I say a lot of what we know about human behavior, especially in times of a crisis, is just sometimes labeling it and acknowledging it and just empathizing with the person can go a long way. And there's a lot of research which really points to the, if people feel like they've been heard, if people feel like their managers care for them, then that really drives engagement. So sometimes just acknowledging it and empathizing, and it goes a long way. And a lot of us are really problem solvers, and we want to try to have a solution for somebody. And sometimes we may have that, sometimes we may not. And then the third thing is just acknowledging that during this time, again, just remember our brain is always on the lookout for threats. We may not be operating at our best. I find sometimes that, I have to go over and over my slides because I'm just not as focused on details as I should be during this time. And I'll have somebody else kind of look at them for me, because sometimes I'm just not operating at my best. And then, which I'll show you in a couple of minutes, there are some key things you can do and some strategies around your communication. And then lastly, I've been hearing from so many people in the state and around just a lot of my clients that there has been tremendous innovation that has come out of this. When people say, I have no option but to do something different. So be on the lookout for that. So some key levers, some things that you can do, especially around this first one, that we are craving certainty. And again, this is a playbook that we're kind of, developing and making up as we go along. And what you can really do first and foremost in your role is just communicate often, and just try to do it well. And also try to set some expectations for how often you'll communicate. One of my clients here in Tucson, when the pandemic first started, they started, communicating 4 times a week and having kind of all hands meeting. And then they put out a little pulse survey, and people said, well, we appreciate the thought, but 4 times is too much. So they're down to 3, but people know what to expect their regular meetings. Because again, when these times of unknown, it's human nature. People will generate their own version of the world, and sometimes worst case scenario. The other thing that oftentimes as managers, you may think, well, I don't know if I should really be honest with people. I don't know if I should let them know how dire the situation is. And what we've been finding is be upfront, but also be upfront about some of the positives that you may not think everybody else wants to know about. I have one client who has 3 positions open, and I said, tell people about it. They'll get excited, and they'll see optimism and hope that you're still hiring. Another thing another client has done is they've been very explicit about the amount of cash they have on hand. And they're fortunate enough, they said, listen, we have 3 months of cash in our reserves, and we're going to be okay, and we'll continue to tell you how we're doing. And they've been, a lot of businesses have been even more explicit about what's going on. If you have new business development, they've been overly detailed about what the pipeline is, what's coming in, just letting people know. And also people want to know what's going to be different, but they also want to know what's going to be the same. Again, our brain craves certainty. And I could think, especially now when things start to reopen, is we've gotten used to the routine of whatever we were under for the last couple of months. So what's going to be the new routine? What's going to be the new structure? Because again, remember, we crave routine, we crave predictability. And then lastly is be upfront, and it's okay to say, I just don't know yet. People, again, will respect you for your honesty and forthrightness. The other thing is there's so much that we don't know, but providing clarity to people about when you think you will have the answer goes a long way. And again, I'm sure a lot of you are doing this already, so I'm probably preaching to the choir, but again, as we move into the next stage, probably some additional lessons. Our brain, and as humans, we want to have control. We don't want to be told what to do, and we want to feel like we have a say. And so one of the things that can be so helpful is if there are opportunities where you can provide some autonomy to people, whether it's letting them work on something without supervision, a small bit, because there's so much now that people are feeling like, we're being told what to do, or, I don't have control over the things that I used to. And so if you can help people with autonomy, help them to understand what they do have control over, and to say, yeah, you might not have control over this, or we're having to follow these specific protocols, but here's where we do have control. The other thing that we've been finding too is when people have choice, they can feel much better and feel like, again, they have control. And one of the big lessons at the University of Arizona was that a lot of universities, instead of doing letter grades, they all went to pass fail. And what we did was we gave our students choice. For individual courses, you could select a letter grade or you could select a pass fail. And the overwhelming amount of feedback that they said was, thank you for giving us choice. Whether they all ended up doing pass fail was not the issue, but the fact that we gave them choice. And the other thing, the last piece is just avoid micromanaging, because that just further exacerbates the situation. And what we've heard also is that, when we're all under stress, some of us have more need to want to control, and that may transcend to wanting to control others. And the other thing that I'm sure that you've all been doing really well, and even just the daily boot camps, are people in our brain, we want to belong, we want to have community, we want to feel a part of something. So the more you can continue this with your employees, again, it'll go a long way. The other thing in this first bullet is that we found too that the more you can keep people focused and with some shared goals, that's really helpful for not only belonging, but feel like they have some purpose. Regularly scheduled meetings. A lot of companies, you're probably doing this, have kind of end of day stand-up meetings to share progress so people can feel good. They can say, yeah, we're doing, we did this, we accomplished this, even if it's really small. People, because we're all feeling a little bit tentative, praising, just some recognition. I have these, let others be the heroes of their own stories. One of the things that, our students have shared to us, just the loss of jobs that they thought they had. My class was seniors. And, and I just continue to praise our students for being troopers, to continue to stay engaged in their classes when a lot of things were falling off around them. And inclusion, one of the other things that we know about our brain is that we often tend to want to gravitate to the familiar, to people who are kind of like us, who are kind of suffering some of the same challenges, and that unintentionally we may be excluding others. And again, there are lots of things that we've all been hearing about this, as the pandemic has gone. So really be, as leaders, to be very mindful intentional about reaching out to people who may not feel as included, whatever that might look like. Using a lot of we and us, you know, a lot of the taglines, we're all in this together, we're all in the same boat, kind of that again, that feeling of us. And there's been a lot written. You could probably do a whole webinar on kind of what people are doing to continue to promote culture and community. I just threw a few of these down, but lots of things and probably a lot of best practices around this that really seem to be helping a lot. And again, personalizing things and making people feel like they are all valued, they are all heard. And that's really some of the essence of it. Whoops, sorry. Just want to close with some just general leadership tips that kind of are rising above this. One is to somehow, and I don't have the silver bullet on this, but somehow in your messaging, balancing the hope with an optimism with some realism also. And just, you know, and a lot of things that we've been hearing now is, you know, things probably are not going to go back to normal and go back to the way they are. That's some realism, but you know, things may be different and there's still a lot of opportunity. There's still a lot of hope for the future. So as a leader, being able to really balance that, and some of us by nature are a little bit, you know, more kind of cynical or a little bit more kind of see the glass half empty. And I think that's where we have to really look at and calibrate our own messages. And some of us may kind of go on the opposite end, that we're a little bit Pollyannish and everything's going to be wonderful after XYZ time, and to really be able to balance this for our people. The second piece here is a really interesting one during this time period in terms of the balance of vulnerability, acknowledging kind of your own feelings, your own fears, but also balancing that with strength. Because at the end of the day, people are looking to you for leadership. And if you're kind of, you know, running around like a chicken with your head cut off, that's not going to be helpful for them. But also if you're so stoic and you're maybe moved through acceptance and everything is wonderful, then that they may look at themselves and say, gosh, you know, I'm not quite there yet. What's wrong with me? So it's somehow, again, that real balance of, again, acknowledging your own self where you are and balancing that with strength and optimism for the future. And we talked about this already, but we may not have certainty. People are looking for clarity. And so balancing what you know, but also it's okay to acknowledge the unknown, because at the end of the day, people may want and they may be craving the specifics, but you know, we're all in unknown territory. So just acknowledging that, and they're going to respect you for that. And then the other thing, which again, I go back to a lot of the silver lining that a lot of people have been talking about, is that this is an opportunity to experiment with things. I have a local restaurant here that, you know, was only dine in, had never done any takeout. And, you know, they've been experimenting, and this particular owner does a blog every day, and he kind of talks about some of the innovation that he's tried to do with kind of getting ingredients. And it's an opportunity to try some things. They may not work, and people are trying to be more forgiving during this time, you know, and also balancing that with some stability as well. So I oftentimes talk about the paradox of leadership and how it's not kind of one or the other, but we try to do both. And I want to leave you with just thinking about leadership as the balance, and it's not an either or, but it can be an and both, and being able to do some experiments with also trying to gain some stability in the business as well. So I'm going to stop here. I'll not share my screen anymore, so in case there are other questions that come about here.
Well, that was fantastic, Deborah, fantastic. There were so many points that resonated with me on how this last several weeks have gone. I'm just going to share with you, and I'm going to encourage everyone, if they could, to use your hand raise function. We'll unmute you. We'd like to hear from you today. This is a great topic to actually get a little bit off the screen. You're more than welcome to use the Q&A section, but also just raise your hand, and if you'd like to, we'll unmute you to give you a chance to talk. But one of the things I wanted to mention was, for us in the innovation team and with the Arizona Commerce Authority, we've dealt with so many items, right from the beginning, on the critical nature of the crisis to working on PPE and supply chain items, and moving from there, not rapidly, but through the process, now looking at the combination of health and safety with the economic return. And from our perspective, we're very, very, very busy. Literally, we've gone 24/7 for several weeks. And I've noticed one of the points you've raised was so important, that just there are so many different circumstances. And as you start to talk with an individual that maybe you hadn't talked to for a while, they could be in a totally different state of mind, a totally different circumstance of not being so busy or having pressures, with regards to work and so forth. What are the strategies that you would recommend in those regards as you start to have those interactions to make sure that you bring people along?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think one is just recognize that people are in different places. And I guess, don't be afraid to engage them in the conversation to understand what's going on with them. I think sometimes as managers, we want to, not delve into too much of the personal life of somebody and give them their space. But yet in this time, you may need to delve into a little bit more, because especially I'm thinking with that high depression piece, there may need to be some services that they need to partake of. And just again, letting them know as the manager, the leader of the organization, that you care for them as a human being, that you want to try to be helpful for them, that you recognize where they are, that's going to mean so much for them. So, it's a small thing, but just don't be afraid to engage them in the conversation. And that even though you're trying to keep your business afloat, that's not an either or. You can keep your business afloat and attend to your people, because they're going to help you. They're going to help you in the long run to keep your business. So I hope that was a good answer, Andy.
That was excellent. Thank you. We have a couple of questions. So one question from Douglas: are you a believer in daily wellness sign-off? My staff gets asked the question daily, most notably, do you feel safe here? And what is your thought about that? Most predominantly, I'd like to, first of all, the overall concept of it, and then perhaps the cadence, the timing, daily, every other day, once a week, maybe comment on that.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. And I would say get feedback from your staff on that. And I think one of the things that I've learned from my clients is that, and I didn't really talk about that much, but safety, physical safety, mental safety, psychological safety is really important to people. So getting a daily kind of check-in to where people are, I think that's really great. And reinforcing those messages, I just don't think you can do that enough. And to ask people, don't be afraid to ask people, like my one client did. They say, are we communicating, too much or too little? And they said, it's too much. So don't be afraid to ask people, is this working for you? Should we stop this? They'll be happy that you asked them. Again, that's the choice piece.
That's great. That's a great suggestion. Another question from Andy. Do you find that as leaders, you have two buckets you are managing, your normal work plus being more creative and coach the employees?
I'd love to hear from some other people. That's what I've been hearing, that, this is I don't want to say taxing, but it's extremely taxing, a taxing time on leaders because they're having to do all of this. And, you know, one of the things that I would say also is self-care is important for you also. And that if you're not taking care of yourself, then you're probably not going to take care of others as well. So, and again, I don't have all the magic bullet answers, so I'm sorry.
We run weekly office hours for technology startup founders every Thursday. By the way, we'd like to invite you to join us on that. This would be a great topic for them. One of the things we've talked about is you have to take care of everybody. You have to over communicate, meaning you're going to communicate much more than you normally would. But also one of the things we always end with is please make sure you take care of yourself, because as leaders, it's very, very tricky to navigate through all of that. And we want to make sure people are cognizant of that. So we want to make sure they're taking care of themselves so that they can actually take care of their employees as well. And I couldn't agree more with that concept of, you know, you have to do the work. In fact, probably even more work with your employee base and their status, their safety and others, and helping them through that is super important. So I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, and just one thing before I forget about it too, is that this is why kind of understanding where people are, and you may need to spend more time with some that are at a different place, and the others that are in acceptance, maybe you spend less time with them. So kind of think about where you're allocating your time and maybe recalibrate a bit.
Yeah, that's super important. We definitely have in our organization, you know, we have many that are very, very comfortable in the remote environment, in the Zoom world, you know, making things happen. And you know, we've seen incredible productivity occur. But we also know that there's a few, not few, but some people just don't work that way. They need the actual human interaction, the actual interface on a day-to-day basis with a team, you know, with individuals in the office. And I think those are really important to understand. What are your strategies on that? You know, kind of the uber remote people versus the I need to see people every day.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, understanding who's where, and also what we found is that some people, it's not only the community environment, but some people just need you as the manager to help provide them more structure. They aren't able to do that on their own. And so that may be where you either need to step in, have more meetings, or you may have to help them provide the structure. And I know it sounds kind of overly simplistic, but to say, okay, let's talk about what are your goals for the day? What are you going to do in these blocks? Because in the absence of that, they just may find difficulty with it.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you for that. I noticed in our the polls that you ran, which I loved, by the way, thank you for doing that. The combination of worried about money and depression were pretty significant in the responses, and it looks like that feeds off of each other. You know, it feeds off of each other. So, again, thinking through some of the strategies, what would you recommend?
Wow, that's yeah, and I think it goes back to understanding where some of the concerns are, and you know, if it's about money, then as we talked about, being transparent about where your business is, what's going on. You know, I know that some companies, if people are furloughing, they're allowing them to do some other business and things like that on the side. So again, try to just understand it. This may be where, if you can try to problem solve it, be able to do that. You all probably have some resources for some, you know, public health resources for people who may be suffering from depression. The other thing that we've seen sometimes too is having space where people can just kind of talk about how they're feeling. And like the conversation I had yesterday with my colleague who's depressed, just talking about it was really helpful. And I know we, don't want to kind of mix the business side with the personal side, but, you could encourage people to do that, because if they're bottling up inside, that's not going to be helpful for them. I, again, don't know if that was a good answer, Andy. This stuff is really hard. It really is. And, I feel like with some of these questions, I have some thoughts on those, but there aren't any silver bullets for this.
We have a question, and I'm going to see if I can, let's just see here.
Well, one was about burnout and reports showing that productivity. Yeah, this is an interesting one, has actually increased. But there's a potential. Then they're wondering how much can we actually keep this pace up and wellness, and that's another one where don't know if I have a good handle on this, because I think with the anxiety about money and jobs has propelled people to kind of keep on the treadmill and work and work and work. And again, I'm just going to go back to as managers, just understanding where people are, and if you see that there's a little bit of burnout or something may be happening, give somebody permission to just kind of take some chill time around that and make sure you're not the one that's really exacerbating that. But I just think this is one that we're going to have to keep an eye on, especially as things open up too, that we again keep that balance between kind of keeping, getting the economic engine going, but not at the expense of health, because then what's going to happen is then the more stress that we go under and wellness is an issue, then our immune system takes a hit, and that's not going to help ward off the virus. So again, I'm getting a little nervous, Andy. Some of these questions are just not easy answers.
No, that's okay. We're going to go to Douglas in a second. He's raised his hand.
Oh, okay.
Second, Douglas. I just a comment on the burnout. I mean, that's an important one. There's no doubt about that. I know that we have been working very, very hard, and you're always worried about, a team and making sure that they're not in that situation where they're burning out. Literally, we've actually had to check each other every once in a while, saying, what day is it? Is this Friday? Yeah. Is this Thursday? So we want to make sure we monitor that as well. Douglas, go ahead. I've got your ability to unmute. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
So I asked the question earlier about the wellness certificate at the beginning of the day, and we do something here that we've done anyway throughout my career, is an end of day report from employees. And I'm curious of your thought of how to read the wellness, the psychological wellness of an employee as you send them home every day.
And Douglas, if you can maybe talk about what that looks like first, I'd be really interested in that, and then I have a response. What does your end of day look like for that?
Okay, so it's a breakdown of what you accomplished today, because my first target of coming to work every day is that you should look forward to coming to work every day. If there's something about not looking forward to it, then there's a problem inherent in starting the day off. So that's we started off with wellness, or do you feel safe? At the end of the day, my reports say, here's what I was able to accomplish today. Here are the questions that I'm left with the tasks that were unfinished. And here are the tasks that I have left for tomorrow so that I can respond and give direction as to what productivity we're going to look at for the next day.
That's great. Terrific. Yeah, so in question kind of what to look for, and one of the things I was thinking about, Andy and others is maybe sending out to your members. I don't have it right now, but there's something that's like the signs of depression that might be really helpful to send out to people. So, they're like, look for this, look for that. I think which there are some kind of typical signs. And I think, one of them is, and we are fortunate in this virtual environment to be able to, really focus on somebody's, kind of their face, and to, be attentive when you're having those kind of wellness check-ins, if you're seeing a difference, a marked difference in somebody's expression, in their energy level, things like that, if you're seeing that a sign that they've, not been accomplishing kind of what they thought they would, if, for example, they're not responding to emails as frequently as they, used to, or as quick as they used to, or if they're normally, doing them at 8:30 in the morning and you're not seeing them kind of get to them till later. I guess what I'm saying is those are some things to just be very observant about, any changes in their normal routine, their energy level, things like that. Because often, or, the other thing, I love the polling feature of Zoom, and it actually gives you anonymous feedback, and you could actually do some polls. If you have a large enough group, how are people feeling today? Or, you could be more specific with that. Are things getting, better? Are things getting better for you? Are things actually worse? And then that could lead to, an opportunity for you to open up a discussion. But if I'm pretty sure polling that's anonymous, you can't see it, you can set it up, and it just can give you some great feedback and check-ins for people who may not feel comfortable kind of going up and talking. So
Thank you. Andy from the hotel industry, hotelier, has asked a couple of questions. And it's around people wanting to get out. Hotel regular check-in is at 3 p.m. We feel trapped in their house, or people feel trapped in their houses and want to come in by 10 a.m. This is unique for hotels, of course, because it creates new challenges. When we try to accommodate, we will turn into expectations. They're almost recreating their expectations set with their customers. How would you work this rather than staff thinking it is making them happy as getting them into a habit?
Wow, I'd love somebody else's thought on that. I'm not sure. That's what an interesting question. Wow, I don't know. I'd love some other thoughts on that, because this is both a business and a psychological kind of question too.
This time it's a business call, and I think this is, Andy, you're relating to the actual customer base, not your staff. So you're doing two things. One, not making it a habit for staff to allow for or create this expectation that your check-in time is now at 10 a.m. versus the normal check-in time at 3 p.m. I think at this stage, people understand that things are changing rapidly. Your customers, I think, are going to understand that change. And if you can give, the ability for an early check-in during this time that can actually assist your clientele, I think it's going to come back to you in a positive way as people refer to your hotel, and it's a positive. So doing that now, and just with the staff understanding, and just keep communicating to them that, this likely won't be our standard operating procedure going forward. We can't run it this way down the road. And as things get busier, we're just going to have to accommodate and kind of make it, if you can do it as an exception, keep doing it. And then as you move forward and things start to get back to normal, then you can make those adjustments and communicate that with your staff going forward, I think.
Yeah, and I just have one thought to add on to that. It goes back to that people feeling like they need to have some control in their lives. And, even with a small thing like that, that could probably go a long way versus somebody saying, well, here are the rules. It's this, and what they're hearing is, oh, another set of rules, another thing I can't do, So I think that's a great idea, Andy, and just saying, making it really special. Well, for this time, we're able to do that. I know how you must be feeling with being cooped up, and here, let me see what I can do this once.
Right. Well, that's great. Deborah, any closing thoughts that you have? This was just absolutely fantastic. It's
good.
Super important information for everybody. I think we've been dealing with so many different topics, and some can get very technical about how do I apply for the PPP loan, and what, do I fill in on this spreadsheet, and how do I do this? And we know we need to talk to our employees. We know we need to communicate, but this has given some really, really important structures and ideas around that. But any closing thoughts?
I think that the closing thought would be, again, you know, as leaders of these businesses, you've got to keep the businesses afloat for your people. And to be able to do that, you're going to need your people really pulling with you. So I think that keeping that in mind, which is all the people that I've talked to, it's really hard because it's like, you know, all some of my clients can do to just kind of get those numbers and the loan and, you know, and the loan, you know, sites keep crashing and things like this. And like they say, I have no more emotional energy that I can put to my people, even though I know it's important. So I think, you know, the more that you can take care of yourself, go out, take a break, and, you know, kind of re-energize so you can be there for your people too, because it's going to be everybody pulling together that's going to reignite the economy. So, and again, I feel so badly. Again, those aren't the magic bullets that probably, you know, people like, I want, just tell me what I need to do and everything's going to be all right. And it's just not that simple. So,
Well, I think that is the point. There are no magic bullets. There's techniques and there's ideas and there's options and creativity around it. I think the really important factor, and the last parting comment that you've made is super important. As business owners, as leaders, as managers, you need to take care of yourself. You need to figure out that outlet. You need to be able to communicate with other like-minded people as well as other individuals that can just help you. So it's just take care of yourself so you can take care of your teams.
Exactly. Good.
Well, thank you so much, Deborah. We really appreciate it. We're going to leave the chat open. We're going to be continuing on our topics. So if you have topic ideas, additional areas around this topic or other topics, please let us know in the chat. We'll keep that open. And again, Deborah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and good luck to everybody. So I'm gonna go out later and help support the economy. Take care.
All right, thank you.